Good morning, and welcome to the Center for Spiritual Living Space Coast Sunday morning service. My name is Reverend Dr. Ron Fox, and this gorgeous lady by my side is my wife, Becky. The title of my message this morning is Falling Down and Getting Up. But before I begin, I'd like Becky to lead us through a short meditation and prayer.
So this morning what I would like to do is read this beautiful meditation from the book 365 Days of Richer Living that was written by Ernest Holmes and Raymond Charles Barker. And so I just invite all of you to turn within to that place of peace, to that place of inner serenity and joy where this wonderful infinite power is always expressing through us, as us, and for us. And no matter what you call this higher power, whether it's God, whether it's Allah, whether it's Yahweh, this higher intelligence, it is always right here within each and every one of us. And I'm knowing my oneness in this infinite energy of love, that it is the very essence, the very core of who and what I am. And I'm also knowing this for each one of us, that each one of us is here expressing this wonderful, infinite, divine power. And so within me is a part of God. It is my own true self. This inner spirit releases through me the energy, vitality, and joy of God. My whole body is now filled with God's vitality. I am not fatigued this day, for God's energy working in every cell of my body renews and maintains me in complete perfection. I am alive and vital, for God's ideas fill my consciousness. New creative channels open for me this day in my business and family life. I look forward to new ways of service, new ways of expressing love. I dedicate all that I am to being vitally alive with the life of God. I shall be a blessing to all who contact me this day. And so knowing this, I release it right here, right now, knowing that it is already done. And so it is.
And so it is. Thank you so much, Becky. Before I begin my message this morning, I just want to let everybody know that one day this week, we're not sure if it'll be Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, we're going to invite everybody to come on a Zoom call with us so we can see one another and talk to one another. You know, it's not like being there live and being able to hug each other, but for right now, it's as close as we can get. So please look at your email for an invitation to our Zoom call later this week. So as I said before, my title today is Falling Down and Getting Up. And I'd like to start with a story about a young man who visits a monastery and gets a tour. And as he's touring, he asks one of the monks, "So how do you gentlemen spend your day?" And the response he gets is, "We fall down and get up. We fall down and get up. We fall down and get up." And the point is, it doesn't matter how many times we fall down. What's important is how many times we get up. So I want to share with you a Zen koan that I have used as a teaching tool many times in my ministerial career. And here it is. A truly enlightened person falls into a well. How is this so? A truly enlightened person falls into a well. How is this so? In the course of many years of asking students what this means to them, I've gotten some very interesting answers. My own take is that no matter how far along the spiritual path we are, we all make mistakes and we all fall down. The secret to spiritual living is how many times we rise and how many times we start over again. It helps me to stay centered by knowing that God is on my side. There are no hurdles that I have to jump over except the ones that I create myself. You know, Einstein once said that the single most important question that we can ask is the universe a friendly place? And he answered in the affirmative. God only wants good for us. My job, no, our job is to turn from whatever we have created that may be giving us pain to what we know is whole, perfect, and complete. It's not always easy to do, believe me, I know that. But I also know from many years of practicing myself and from seeing people in my church and who have come to Becky and I for counseling that it is doable. You know, so many of us have been trained from early life to believe in lack and limitation. And I just want you to know, years of conditioning in that aren't going to be healed by one message, one book, one workshop, or one prayer. It takes work. It's a lifetime of working and being. So I want to share with you a story, and this is a true story, about somebody who worked on a project that was turned out to be really good, but could only see the downside in it. So it's a story about a group of monks who lived in Southeast Asia, and they pooled their money and bought a plot of land. And they were so cash poor, they couldn't afford at first to put buildings up. They couldn't even afford beds. They slept on doors. Well, one day the abbot came to one of the monks who he knew had done construction work and asked him to build a brick wall. Well, he had never done that before, but he got some books, read up on it, and he built a brick wall. And the day it was finished, he stepped back, looked at it, and he went, oh no. 2 of the bricks were at an angle. So he went and asked the abbot if he could tear it down and build it again. And the abbot said, no, we don't have money for the supplies to do that. And all he could see was the downside. All he could see were the 2 bricks that are at an angle. A few months later, the abbot asked him to give a visitor a tour. And as they were touring the property, they came to the brick wall, and the visitor said, wow, that is a gorgeous wall. And this monk turned to him and said, don't you see the 2 bricks that are at an angle? And he said, yeah, I do. But I also see the 998 that are perfectly straight and beautiful. And the monk was shocked because all he could see were his mistakes. All he could see were the bricks that are at an angle. So my question is, how many of us can only see the bricks, the slanted bricks in our life? How many of us could only see through eyes of lack or limitation? How many of us have stayed in a job or a relationship that caused us pain because we could only see our faults, only see our mistakes? How many of us have let our lives be driven by fear? Just a postscript to this story, and this too is true. Months later or a year later, this monk was talking to a builder, and he was telling him about the wall, and the builder said to him, you know, every brick wall I make has mistakes in it. I go back to the client and say, I built in a unique feature, and I charge them more for it. You know, when we develop new ways of thinking, what life gives us, we see in new ways too. You know, most of us are too focused on our past. And what that does, when we're looking at the past, when we're looking in the rearview mirror, we don't get to see opportunities that are right in front of us. Alexander Graham Bell once wrote, when one door closes, another opens. But we so often look so long and so regretfully at the closed door that we do not see the ones which are open to us. You know, we don't always have the power to control events that are showing up in our lives, but we do always have the power to control how we think and how we're going to act on the events that show up in our lives. Ernest Holmes, the founder of the Centers for Spiritual Living, wrote, "God never intended men to suffer. God never intended men to suffer." I know many of you are familiar with Louise Hay, the late Louise Hay, who is a religious science minister and also the founder of Hay House, the largest spiritual publishing company in the country. And Louise authored many books. And in one of them, she said, "Whatever we believe comes true for us. Whatever we believe comes true for us." And she said, look at the problems in your life and ask, what kinds of thoughts am I having that create this? She told us that the point of power is in the present moment. You get whatever you choose to think. And then she said, suppose that you're online in a cafeteria or a buffet in a really exquisite hotel. But instead of having trays of food, they have trays of thought. And you get to choose as many as you want. And these thoughts will create your future. Well, it would be really silly, wouldn't it, to create thoughts that are going to give us pain. It would be like eating a food that we know is going to make us sick. So the idea is we should go through life choosing thoughts and beliefs that are going to be good for us, that are going to take us to higher heights. Ernest Holmes once again reminds us, there is an intuition within you which already knows you are one with good, that your destiny is certain, and you must listen to this intuition, for it is the voice of God within you. So I want to tell you a fable now about a lady named Baba Yaga. Some of you are familiar with Nasruddin, who is a Sufi symbol, teaching symbol. Well, Baba Yaga is a Russian teaching symbol that Jack Kornfield talks about in his book, After the Ecstasy, The Laundry. And he describes Baba Yaga as an old hag who lives deep in the forest, and all day she stirs her pot, and she's all-knowing, and people come to visit her. So I want to share with you a fable about 3 visitors who come to visit her one day. The first one is a young man, and she asks him, "Are you on your own errand, or are you sent by another?" And he says, "I am sent by my father." And she throws him in the pot and cooks him. A little later, remember now, this is a fable. A little later, a young woman comes, and Baba Yaga says to her, "Are you on your own errand, or are you sent by another?" And she responds, "I am on my own errand." And Baba Yaga throws her in the pot too. A while later, another young woman comes, and Baba Yaga says to her, "Are you on your own errand, or are you sent by another?" And she responds, "In large part, I'm on my own errand, but in large part, I also come because of others. And in large part, I have become because you are here, and because of the forest, and something I have forgotten. And in large part, I know not why I come." Baba Yaga looks at her and says, "You'll do. Come in." Here's the point. We don't know all the reasons we go on a spiritual journey, but something propels us to do that. Something in us knows that we're meant to do more than work. And it might be a combination of factors. It might be a childhood longing. It might be a walk in nature. It might be something stirs in us when we hear a beautiful symphony. Or it might be when we spend time at the bed of a loved one who's getting ready to pass on. But here is the point. Whatever it is, it happens to all of us. At some point, we're all going to be called to go on that spiritual journey. You know, too often we fear the unknown. We fear what we don't know. And I read somewhere that on the unknown places of their maps, ancient cartographers used to write, "Here there be dragons." So here's an exercise that we all can do. You know, we're all in all the time now, and I know some of us are alone, and rather than wasting this time watching TV all day, we can do stuff to grow spiritually. And here's an exercise we all can do. Fill in the blank. If I were not afraid, I would. If I were not afraid, I would. Fill in the blank. You know, the late Reverend Robert Schuller of the Crystal Cathedral in Southern California was a proponent of possibility thinking, looking at what could be. He called it positive anticipation. And he used to say, if it's going to be, it's up to me. If it's going to be, it's up to me. So before I close, I want to tell you a story about what happens when we do our spiritual life, our spiritual work, and how it can transform our life. And this too is a story from after the ecstasy, the laundry. So a person writes, he and his wife were living in Hong Kong, and their relationship was falling apart. And 2 years before, their youngest daughter had died from sudden infant death syndrome. So they decide to move back to the States to work on their relationship, and it doesn't work. So they separate. And he tries a number of different spiritual techniques, but nothing really helps as much as he'd want. And he's dating a woman who introduces him to her meditation teacher, and he invites him to come on a meditation retreat. And he accepts. And he says on the first day, they pretty much meditated all day. On the morning of the second day, as he's meditating, in his mind's eye, he sees himself looking at his daughter's grave, and shovel after shovel of red clay dirt being thrown on it. And tears come. And then something cracks within him, and he starts to wail. And the people all around him are shushing him. But the meditation master comes and shushes them and holds him in his arms. And he writes that all day he wept. And then he writes, years later, it's 30 years later now, and I'm the one who holds the ones who weep. When we're willing to take the time to do the work, nothing is beyond us. We can take ourselves to places that we have never imagined. So why not begin to do the work today? I want to close with a reading from Rumi, who wrote, "This human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival, a joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they're a crowd of sorrows, who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice. Meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whoever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. God bless you. Have a great week, and we'll see you on Zoom.